Diana, good morning. How are you?
Rover, how are you doing? I'm great, thank you.
Hey, first of all, I have to be honest with you. I didn't know a lot about you, Diana Nyad, other than what I saw on CNN when you were doing these swims and that sort of stuff. But I've been reading up on her. She's lived a fascinating life. First off, you're known for swimming from Cuba to the United States, but you were a swimmer. You set all sorts of records and stuff before that. In fact, your first swim, your first real competitive swim, you set a women's world record. At least that's what I read. Could that be right?
Well, I mean, I was an ocean swimmer in the 1970s, and I held a number of records. I was the first woman ever to swim around Manhattan Island, for instance. So, yeah, way back in the day, in my 20s, I'm now in my 60s. And I'll tell you the truth, Rover, there's no doubt in my mind that I am in the prime of my life, including speaking athletically today, much more than back in my 20s. So, yeah, but I held a number of records back then.
Why do you think that is, Diana, that in your 60s you can be in better shape? Is this because technology and nutrition and our knowledge of what it takes to be healthy and fit is better now than it was back 40 years ago? Or how's that possible?
I think most of it is, emotional and mental. I mean, how many athletes have you heard? I've heard dozens of them say. John McEnroe is a good example, that he only wished he could go back and play his great tennis now. Now that he's got a perspective on life and he's calmer emotionally. So, to bring all that to it, and, let's face it, in an endurance sport, you got half a chance to be in incredible shape, whereas if you're a sprinter, a football player where brute force and off the mark ability are part of it, yeah, you're going to be slower in your 60s for sure. But for the endurance it takes to do something like I did, I think you're actually, if you can have the discipline to train again at this age, I think you're in some ways you have a number of things on your side better as you're older.
Why did you? It seems like you had a real obsession making it from Cuba to the United States. Why?
Yeah.
What? I mean, obviously you were an ocean swimmer. That would be quite the technical challenge. But what was it about that you became fixated on?
I think there are many swimmers around the world who consider that Cuba swim kind of the Mount Everest of the oceans. First of all, it's a magical place when you can swim from a nation to another nation and your country. There's something to the history. The reason the English Channel 100 years ago became the big, epic swim was because of where it is. It's not just you can just pick that amount of miles anywhere. The Earth is four-fifths ocean. You could go swim, like I did 110 miles from Cuba. You could go swim anywhere, Guam, Thailand, Japan. But this is two countries, two forbidden countries. There's tremendous history here on this map. When you look at the map and you see Cuba, we as Americans anyway, we know just where that is and what's happened over there. And then you can add Mother Nature. It's like Mother Nature on steroids in those Florida Straits with the particular jellyfish and sharks and the currents from the Gulf Stream. It was just a gigantic challenge that loomed in my imagination. And by the way, not only me, many good swimmers have tried since 1950 to make that crossing, and I was the first one to do it. And as I said, it sort of had epic imagination to it.
I just thought of this, Diana. Now you obviously you swim. You had a support staff. Boats were going, spotting sharks. You were able to drink and eat or whatever. But I just had this thought because of what's happening in the news with this missing airliner. Maybe they found it, maybe they haven't. But if you let's just for fantasy, you're in a little plane. The plane crashes in the middle of the ocean. How long? You're the only survivor. How long would you be able to survive out there, do you think, Diana? Because your experience of being out there in the ocean for days at a time, how long do you think you could last with no raft? It's just you in the middle of the ocean.
Well, that's an interesting theoretical question. And when you look into survival stories, because sport is very different from war or survival. So I'm sure you read the Unbroken story.
Great book. Fantastic. Yeah.
Marini, right?
Yeah.
So, we're talking about, of course, they were in a raft, but I don't care. They're sunburned. Sharks are coming around to beat them. They don't have any water or food to drink. They were in that raft for 47 days. Now, if they were in the ocean, with no raft, nothing to hold on to, then now you're talking about both willpower and you're talking about luck. If a shark doesn't come in, usually they do. These sharks, this is their territory. They know where you live and they know, they know how to get you. So I don't know. It would be hard to say, but I would say that I'd probably, of course, last longer than most.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm sure. Diana is an interesting person, not only for her swimming, but you wrote a book on Keyshawn Johnson. Is that correct?
I did. I've written a few books back in the day, and I'm writing again. Knopf has signed me to write a memoir this year. I'm very gratified to think that I can tell the story of this Cuba drama, my own way. But Keyshawn, it was part of a series. There was a publisher down in Mississippi who got the idea to do a series of kids for, they call it young adult novels, YA novels, for kids who are about 11 to 14. And he wanted to do stories of athletes who had come from very tough beginnings. And they easily, as Keyshawn could, have gone down the road of drugs and bad news, because that's all they had in their lives to survive. But they didn't. They chose sports instead to get them up, get them out. And Keyshawn literally, here in Los Angeles, lived in a car with his mother for 2 years. Literally slept in the front seat of a car for 2 years. And all of his friends, at that time, the little junior high school kids, they went down, the bad road. It's all they could do, to get a little cash and food. And he didn't. He chose football. And he's a great guy. He tells his story very well. So the first of that series was Keyshawn, and we had the whole 12 series lined up, but the publisher ran out of money. And, I wasn't in the financial position to just go, do that whole thing myself. So,
well, now Diana Nyad Nyad's going to be on season 18 of Dancing with the Stars Monday nights, 8 p.m. on ABC. Now, that brings me, you make an interesting point about these athletes that have overcome quite a bit. This is something I didn't know about Diana Nyad either. You didn't have an easy childhood yourself. You overcame quite a few things. And speaking of books, I don't know if you've written a book about yourself yet or not, or where this information came from. But my researcher says that at the age of 11, your adopted father sexually abused you, and then I think later in life.
No. It was a coach. No adopted father. My father's my real father. There's no adopted father.
Okay.
I had a swim coach like millions of kids in this country who are, sexually molested by their, people who know them and who they trust, like the Sandusky case. I was one of those kids. But you know what? I have my little story to tell, but, compared to, many people who truly suffer and suffer through tragedies, believe me, Rover, I've had a privileged life. So, there's a story there, and there's you just can't, pretend that things didn't happen in your life. But that was not a father, that was a coach. And, these are bad guys who do heinous crimes to young people.
Do you think
to put you out in the world, with some character?
Yeah. You mentioned that you wish now, or that you, in an endurance sport, you're in your 60s now and you feel better than you ever did even when you're in your 20s. Do you attribute part of that to that maybe in your 60s you've lived life, you can put things into perspective? I'm not certainly minimizing what your coach did to you at all. What I'm saying is that you probably come to terms with things, and I'm guessing when you were 20, 21 years old, in your 20s, you're still haunted by that a lot more than you are now in your 60s.
Oh, yeah. I don't live with that anymore. I mean, I think there's an imprint, everything from the day you're born, everything affects you. And, way deep down, maybe in your soul, you still live it. But, I don't live that stuff on my skin anymore, that's for sure. I'm full of strength and joy and pizzazz. I don't have any kind of tragic element to me whatsoever.
Have you written a book about yourself yet?
I did. I wrote a book when I was 30 years old called Other Shores. But, as I said, I'm writing a new memoir for Knopf Publishers. And, at 64, you certainly have more of life lived. And more perspective on what life's all about than you do when you're 30.
Can I ask you a personal question? Because I know that a lot of people who are listening to this may have this very same question. If it's too personal, you can just tell me. But this coach that did this to you when you were 12 or 13 years old or whatever. Now Diana is openly a lesbian. Do you think that had anything to do with it, or did you have those feelings beforehand? I have always thought people are born that way, and that's just you're born gay, and that's what it is. But I suppose a traumatic event could also make you distrust men. Do you think?
Yeah, but you know what, Rover? I don't think distrust leads to a change in your sexuality. I think most sociologists and most sex experts today do believe that your sexuality is imprinted when you're very, very young, if not, as you say, at birth. So if we took all the people, men and women, who were abused sexually as children, I don't think the majority of them, wind up gay because they just, hate that entire gender.
Right.
And, so most women I know who were raped or were sexually abused over a long period of time as kids, they're straight, So, no, I don't think it leads directly. I don't think there's a direct connection there, no.
Are you excited to be doing Dancing with the Stars? I assume you are.
I'm thrilled. And, when you say I'm going to be, we've already started, right? I did some crazy foxtrot last week, and that was a challenge for me. I can't tell you. I took an ego bruising on that. But I have the cha-cha coming up this week. I've always wanted to do the show. Since day one, 9 years ago, I love that show. I love seeing someone who's just a raw, untalented, clunk on the dance floor learn with their partner. And every week they get a little smoother and they get a little rhythm. And pretty soon they're doing a great tango, So you got to last on the show to be able to do it. They vote somebody off every week. So they're going to vote somebody off this coming Monday. And I just hope it's not me and I get a chance to do a few more little steps on the floor.
Well, Diana, listen, you've had an interesting life. I'm looking forward to when you do put out another book because you've lived quite the interesting life besides all of the swimming. And I appreciate you coming on, and good luck on Dancing with the Stars.
Rover, it's great to talk to you, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you, Diana. Diana Nyad.